Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I am your host, the Fellow KGB. You can follow me on Twitter at theFellowKGB. And today we're going to be continuing our AFC South push here. We're looking at all teams in the AFC South, doing a little fantasy team preview, looking at the depth charts, new acquisitions and adds, and seeing how this team might unfold for the 2020 season. And we just covered the Texans, so if you haven't checked that out, please do. We got a bunch of other. This is the fifth division that I'm working on. So AFC East and AFC North have been covered. NFC East and NFC North have also been covered. So go ahead and check those out if you haven't. But for now, we're going to take a look at the Indianapolis Colts in this video. And if you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms that this is available on, I highly recommend checking us out on YouTube. That's where I do my screen shares, and you can kind of see what I'm looking at when I talk through these. So I think that just provides a little bit more value. But if not, enjoy the show, and we'll hop into the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm just on the fantasyfellowship.com here. I'm going to go to the team tabs of the Indianapolis Colts, and we're looking here at the head coach, Frank Reich, offensive coordinator, Nick Sirianni, and defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus. This team has some continuity here with Reich and Sirianni being together there for 2 complete years now. This will be their 3rd year in their system, and basically polar opposites of seasons. 2018, they had Andrew Luck as quarterback. They threw the ball a ton. They didn't run the ball as much. And then last year with Jacoby Brissett, they did not throw the ball very much, and they ran the ball a ton. So I'm kind of projecting somewhere in between this year. Philip Rivers, they just acquired him, and we'll see if he can he's not going to put up Andrew Luck numbers, but he can be close. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. I'm landing at somewhere in the middle. This should be a very efficient team. The defense is fun to watch. It's got a lot of good playmakers on I guess both sides of the ball too. So we'll see if Rivers can come in here and get the Colts to the playoffs. It's a pretty good cast, supporting cast on offense. They uploaded some new playmakers in the draft, and it's I don't know. The Colts are going to be a fun team. The AFC South in general is, I mean, besides Jacksonville, I think it's a 3-man race. Sorry, Jacksonville fans. But Colts, Texans, and the Titans, man, it's going to be fun to see, to watch these teams duke it out. And we'll see if anyone can make the 7th seed from this division. That wouldn't surprise me either. So let's start with the quarterbacks here. Philip Rivers, they do still have Jacoby Brissett. They drafted Jacob Eason here, and they still have Chad Kelly. So Eason was an interesting guy. He fell kind of farther than most people thought, but they ended up snagging him in the 4th round out of Washington, 122nd overall. So that's going to be good for him to have a guy like Philip Rivers and a guy like Jacoby. Lots of experience in that room. So we'll see if Eason can soak it up. He'll be a fun guy to keep an eye on in the preseason, that's for sure. But, I mean, this is Philip Rivers' show. He's not going anywhere. It sounds like he wants to even play next year, too. I know it's just a 1-year deal, but that's good. I think that he wants to play another year. So I'm not really sure how to view Philip Rivers this year. Everything that he's done with the Chargers, I don't know if we can just kind of plug that into what he's done with the Colts this year. So I guess by talking about Philip Rivers, we almost have to talk about his weapons and what the Colts have versus what the Chargers did not have. So we'll start with the running backs. Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines. And then on the bench, we have Jordan Wilkins, Bruce Anderson, and Darius Jackson. This is a really good running back group. Taylor was the 2nd-round pick. Marlon Mack's been there for 3 years now. He's in his 4th year, and Nyheim Hines, I think, is in his 3rd year now as well. So both guys, I guess all 3 guys offer different things. Jonathan Taylor is probably the best pure running back of the group, and he did show some development as a pass catcher last year with Wisconsin. Marlon Mack's a bruiser. He's not they're not going to rely on him much for the passing game. That's where Nyheim Hines comes in. But if we look quick at what Marlon Mack did last year, it was impressive. He had 247 carries, over 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And then, I mean, we see not a lot of production out of the receiving game. So it looks like Mack and Jonathan Taylor are going to carry the bulk of the carries here. And, I mean, they're both open and acknowledging that this will be a split. I don't know how close it will be. I would imagine it's like a 60-40 split towards Jonathan Taylor, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is more of a 55-45 split with both guys getting almost the same amount of touches. So at the moment right now, I have Taylor with 185 carries, Marlon Mack with 160 on the year. I think it's going to be a pretty even split. It might lean Taylor a little bit more just because of the draft capital. But with this offensive line being so good, Philip Rivers is an older quarterback. They're going to try to run the ball as much as they can. So I like both running backs. I just don't know if I mean, Mac's going to be a nuisance for Jonathan Taylor owners, and Taylor is going to be a nuisance for any Marlon Mack owners. Whereas they're probably just going to sabotage each other's value for a lot of the season. I still think Marlon Mack's going to get some goal line run. I mean, I think it's safe to say Taylor's going to get more opportunity in the passing game than Marlon Mack. So for the moment right now, I like Jonathan Taylor as a top 30 running back. It just depends on where you have to grab him. If he's going higher, I don't grab him. But if he falls a little bit, I like him as a RB2-3. And then Marlon Mack provides, he's not going to be a starter for fantasy unless something happens to Jonathan Taylor, or we get to a game like Jacksonville and like you think there could be just a lot of running and a lot of positive game script going on. So I like both guys to score touchdowns. I like both guys to get over 150 touches on the ground. But Taylor probably just provides a little bit more value in fantasy this year. So take that for what it's worth. But the guy that's going to get the most pass catching work is definitely Nyheim Hines. If you think about what Rivers has done with Austin Eckler in the past, and even Melvin Gordon got a ton of targets. So I think between Taylor, Mack, and Hines, the Colts might just end up having 3 useful running backs this season across different formats. I like Hines as a RB3-4 in PPR leagues, and Taylor and Mack are going to shine in non-PPR leagues the most, just because of the volume and the goal line, usage. But we're looking at this is going to be a spread out offense with touches among all 3 players because everyone does something very well. So we'll see how that works. But I guess, I don't know. I'm into all 3 guys. The one that's been ending up on my team the most is Nyheim Hines because he costs like the least amount of draft capital. And he's going to catch a lot of balls. He caught 44 last year on 58 targets, 320 yards, and 7.3 yards per catch. No touchdowns, but he did rush for 2 touchdowns. So he's probably not going to get any rushing touchdowns this year. So we'll see if he can. I don't know. I think he's going to make a splash in the passing game. Philip Rivers. I mean, go back. Rivers' whole career. LaDainian Tomlinson, Darren Sproles, Austin Eckler, Melvin Gordon. He has always passed to the running back. So Nyheim Hines will be the biggest benefactor of all that. And I don't know. Like I said, I think Taylor's going to have a little bit more work than Mack in that game. But all 3 guys are super intriguing fantasy plays. And then we'll see they're probably not going to worry about the guys that are on the bench here, but I still like Jordan Wilkins, Bruce Anderson, an interesting guy to watch. And then they did add Darius Jackson. He's been there for a year or 2 now. So we'll see if all these guys happen to make any moves in the preseason, but it's all about Taylor, Mack, and Hines. So let's move on to the wide receiver room. T.Y. Hilton, 2nd round draft pick, Michael Pittman Jr., the last year's 2nd round draft pick, Paris Campbell, and then Zach Pascal. These are the 4 receivers that are going to be on the field the most. And then guys trying to make the team, Marcus Johnson, Artavis Scott, Desmond Patman, Darius Fountain, Chad Williams, Rodney Adams, Malik Henry, Ashton Doolin, and DeMichael Harris. If we look at the draft real quick here, Michael Pittman was the first pick. He was the 2nd pick in the 2nd round at 34 overall out of USC, and Desmond Patman here at 212, round 6 out of Washington State. So I like both of these guys, but with the high draft capital of Michael Pittman, like they took Pittman over Jonathan Taylor. So I think that just kind of shows their priority, as they're like, we can't leave the draft without Michael Pittman compared to Taylor. So to me, that's kind of a tell that they're going to try to use Pittman right away. And as far as rookie receivers, Pittman ranks among one of the highest this year for me, and maybe next year too. I think he's got one of the best chances as being the best rookie receiver this year. So I guess if we just kind of take a look at the target, 2019 was such a scrap of a year where I really don't feel comfortable looking at the stats and projecting these out for this next season. T.Y. Hilton didn't play much. Zach Pascal was the leading receiver. So if we just look at 2020 and assume that we're going to get 14 to 16 games out of T.Y. Hilton, he's going to be the clear number 1 receiving threat, and he offers a combination of Keenan Allen skills with a lot of deep receiving threat. So Hilton's going to gel very well with a veteran, Philip Rivers. But it's really about Michael Pittman Jr. and Paris Campbell. If these two youngsters can get in rhythm with Philip Rivers early, it's going to be a good season for these Colts. Um, and then the veteran Zach Pascal there as well. So the four receivers are all very good picks. I think Hilton's being drafted a little too low. Philip Rivers has always been able to float, one or two wide receivers in fantasy. So I think Hilton's as far as a fifth or sixth round pick. I like T.Y. Hilton. You're getting a wide receiver one here, and if Hilton stays healthy, we could see some magic here. So that's going to be it for the receivers. If we look quick at the tight end room, Jack Doyle is returning. They did let Eric Ebron go to Pittsburgh, and I guess they signed Trey Burton. They didn't draft a tight end, but they got Jack Doyle and Trey Burton. That's going to be their primary two tight end sets. And then alie-cox is back, and then they got a couple other guys here trying to make the team. But it's going to be all about Jack Doyle, Trey Burton. Doyle's a good blocker. He stays on the field almost at all times. And Trey Burton does have experience with Frank Reich back from Philadelphia. So Trey Burton can be a bright spot, but I mean, I don't know if we're going to use Trey Burton for fantasy purposes unless Doyle goes down. So that would be my recommendation is if anything happens to Doyle, Burton's going to be on our waiver wire speed dial. But Jack Doyle, I mean, he outside of Hilton, Doyle has the best upside as a pass catcher, I think. I mean, Philip Rivers has been so good with tight ends, Antonio Gates, Hunter Henry. He's found those to be very efficient. He looks at them in the red zone, and he really relies on his tight ends and his running backs. So a guy like Jack Doyle, he's going to be on the field a lot as a pass blocker. He's going to be running a lot of routes. Jack Doyle, to me, has top, tight end one upside this year. So he's been one of the guys that I've been targeting late in the drafts. No one really seems to be interested in him at that point in the draft. So, I mean, you think about what Philip Rivers has been good at. I've been saying this for a while, but he's always had running backs to throw the ball to, LT, Darren Sproles, Melvin, and Austin Eckler. And then he's always supported a couple of receivers, whether that was Vincent Jackson or, I mean, Keenan Allen's been there for a while. What's his name? Mike Williams has been there for a while. I'm trying to think of any other receivers there that he's really gelled with. But the tight ends, Antonio Gates, Hunter Henry, he kind of relies on each position quite a bit. So I like Doyle, I like Hilton, and then I guess Jonathan Taylor to be the leader of this backfield. But if anything, I mean, their opening schedule is pretty nice too. I was looking at that earlier, where it looks like the first 8 games they only have about 2 playoff teams on the schedule. So the Chargers, the Colts could get off to a hot start here. So I see Philip Rivers as a solid super flex quarterback 2. You could even start him as your quarterback 1 in 1 QB leagues. But I just think Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, that's going to be kind of frustrating for most owners. And the value of Nyheim Hines is what is interesting to me. But I don't know. I think that's pretty much it for the Colts. Let's take a look at their. I mean, the draft real quick. They stocked up on offense really with the receiver, running back, quarterback, guard. So we see that heavily. We're going to get weapons for this offense for Philip Rivers. They did grab a safety here, which is good. And then I guess didn't even talk about it, but the biggest acquisition this offseason was trading for DeForest Buckner. They gave up a first-round pick for Buckner. That defense is going to be solid. I highly recommend if you're in a league that drafts defense, look at the Colts schedule, and you should probably be targeting the Colts defense to start the year. So they got playmakers on all levels of the ball. So they did add Xavier Rhodes. We talked about Trey Burton, and then they re-signed a couple guys. So Colts, man, they're going to be a 10-win team. They got a good playoff chance and a good opportunity to win the division this year. So it's just going to be a little tough. I think it's going to be hard for rookies to make a big impact this year. Running back's the easiest spot to make an impact rookie year, but guys like Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, that's what this team is going to hinge upon is if Pittman can get in right away and make progress and if Campbell can develop year 2. So, but overall, I'm excited about the Colts. If you found this video helpful, please, if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel as we grow this thing. And thank you for listening on any podcasting platforms. Don't forget to check out some of the other team fantasy previews that I've been putting out, and we'll see you in another video. Thanks for watching. Peace.